Hey there, welcome to episode 104 of the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program. I am your host, Dan Hugo. We are recording very late, 2 days late in fact, on February 23rd. That's Sunday, 2025. It's 8:30 in the morning. Why so late? I had a fun and busy week of good clean fun, which shifted my recording schedule for the week ending 21 February. So normally today's episode would have been published on Friday the 21st, but here we are. That's okay. No problem. So episode 104, the end of season 1, if you're keeping track. Today's episode, Fermi Paradox, LV, the Las Vegas edition. If you're not familiar with the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program, it is named after the Cafe Centro, a small coffee shop, a small cafe in San Francisco in South Park, which was very near what is now the Oracle Ballpark, formerly the AT&T Ballpark. It also had 2 F's in its name. It is sadly no longer in business. It was where startups start. It is a place that I had visited several times when I lived in the Bay Area. It was a pretty cool spot. Twitter got its start there, for better or worse. So we took the name Cafe Genius from the Genius lunches that used to take place here in the greater Vegas area during the days of the downtown project. These were discussions about what was happening, what's going on, what are you guys up to, what are they up to, who's doing what. General conversation, keeping things moving along. And then impresarios, those are people that make things happen, spelled with 2 S's. It's a lesser but correct spelling, don't worry. Cafe Genius Impresarios, about our entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem. Hopefully wherever you found this audio program, you're able to locate the episode description, which contains the show notes, a summary I will read to you, and the links for today's episode. There are only 3, and 2 of them are shameless self-promotion for your host. That's me. So let's get on with it, shall we? The summary of today's episode is: the Fermi Paradox suggests that while there would seem to be a high likelihood of extraterrestrial life existing somewhere else in the universe, extraterrestrial, that's what that is, there is remarkably little evidence of it. Suppose we apply this thinking to our entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem. We experience a lot of hype around this being a great innovation hub and whatnot. But where is everybody? And by the way, that is what Enrico Fermi is alleged to have said. But where is everybody? Something to that effect. You'll see in the links, we have a Wikipedia link for that. The 2 shameless self-promotion links, of course, buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo and Ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/DanHugo. I do publish a weekly update called Buy Me an Update, exclusively on buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo. If you look in the posts, it's an audio post every Monday. Those have been on time so far, and we're on episode 14 for the coming 24th of February. That's tomorrow, as I'm speaking. Now, if you don't listen to these, if you don't subscribe and listen to every week the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program on Friday, this slip in date will not affect you. Same with if you don't listen to the update on Mondays, that's fine. If you never listen to it, then you're missing out. The buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo profile page contains links to all of my audio programs, all of my GitHub projects, a little bit of bio information about me, and my favorite coffee beans. And that list needs some updating. I've added a couple. You're under no obligation to spend any money at this or the Ko-fi website, but you can if you want, and do know that any proceeds that arrive through either of these platforms go towards coffee or coffee accessories. Ko-fi.com/DanHugo does not enable the publication of audio. They can link to it. Strangely, they do not link to the Buy Me a Coffee audio, as far as I can tell. But I post some textual updates there. So these I've used for many years now. Both platforms are used by content creators, open source developers, anyone making things for other people. It's an opportunity to engage, connect, and if people want to be supportive financially, that's fine too. The Fermi Paradox Wikipedia page is the final of 3 links. check that out if you're not familiar with the Fermi Paradox, or for more about some of the finer points. I'm taking some liberty with the use of the paradox in this case, but for good times. But it is somewhat interesting, and it's something that is the topic of today's episode, so I will talk about it more. Is there a startup scene in Vegas? I don't like that word, actually, but let's get to it. So first of all, the hype. Some background on that hype. I have certainly referred to these previously, and there may be many more, but we are the next Silicon Valley. That our innovation hub rivals that of San Francisco, that we are a smart city, and so on. This hype is not easy to find, though. I just checked the MWC, that's Mobile World Congress Las Vegas website, had some really nice hype messaging about how we rival San Francisco, the Bay Area, as the next up and coming, this and that, whatever. It's not to be believed, to be honest. But it took place in October 2024, and the hype text is gone. Now it's a sort of hey, here's how you can follow up on this and that. Maybe next year they'll come up with something even more creative. Our local media does not talk about our ecosystem, that's the Entrepreneurial Innovation Ecosystem, so much, and the LVCVA, that's the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, doesn't seem to drive local influencers and content creators to talk about local entrepreneurs and innovators unless they're in the fun economy space, like restaurants and bars and so on. It's just a theory. If you want to find the hype, the best place to start perhaps is LinkedIn, an awful platform, becoming overly political now, that has gotten worse and continues to do so, but it is the place where people post their upcoming events and announcements and whatnot here in the greater Vegas area about the entrepreneurial scene, the startup scene, etc. If you aren't following the right people to come across this stuff, though, well, too bad, I guess. You'll see it if and when you see it. So a lot of startups here, or a lot of smaller efforts, are in stealth mode, maybe whether they like it or not. Not everybody is out there marketing their efforts and getting picked up by the press and Instagrammers and whatnot. Some startups are laying low. Some are simply not interesting to the general public, but are doing interesting things. So the general public here in Vegas is not necessarily in tune with startups. If it's a tech scene or whatever it is, it doesn't have to be tech. That's another annoyance here in Vegas. We're not going to be the next Silicon Valley. Let me let the air out of that balloon again. But so some are pursuing tech, some are non-tech. Basically, there is no requirement to tell everybody in the greater Vegas area that you are up to something. You don't have to announce that you exist. Sure, restaurants and retail and places that benefit from social awareness and foot traffic are going to put themselves out there. And these are the sorts of businesses that are perhaps most interesting to and mesh well with the fun economy. We've talked about the fun economy. I think the trademark is still pending. Not sure if they'll ever actually get it. People are here or visiting and can encounter these types of businesses in their travels through the other parts of the goings on in the greater Vegas area. So they may find themselves downtown and they come across a new business, whatever it is, retail establishment, etc., that has been advertised on Instagram or TikTok videos as the new cool place to pick up some vintage this or that, whatever it is. So it behooves them to become known, and so our local cadre of influencers can help with that. Sometimes local press will announce a new business opening, although that's rare unless you're a restaurant or a bar, especially a bar. Or if you're a restaurant or a bar with a celebrity owner, celebrity chef, you'll definitely get some attention. So the important part, though, is that as long as they know these places exist, then people could actually come upon them, or could hope to come upon them if they head in the right direction. There is also the possibility that some of these startups in the greater Vegas area are one person, maybe two, technically lacking any employees here locally, so they almost certainly slip below the radar. Unless there are celebrities of some kind involved, they can be left alone and we'll never know they're there. Something like 80% nationwide and 82% here in the Southern Nevada area of small businesses have no employees. And I've mentioned this in previous episodes. So it's not unheard of to have just small businesses that are doing their thing that just don't get any attention. They may actually want attention. It's hard to say. Maybe they don't have the resources to do the outreach. Not sure. So where is everybody? There are startups, including tech startups in Greater Vegas. There are innovative students working on innovative projects. There are people doing interesting things. This is true in many places. Not every place needs to make their startup ecosystem into another Silicon Valley. And in fact, most really cannot. They should focus on being better at whatever they are. Don't try to be something else. And I've said this many times, it is not easy. And even those who have come close to it at great cost to the existing culture may or may not be happy with the results. Witness Austin, which we have covered in a previous episode. When you gentrify an area like Austin, remember Austin, keep Austin weird. The culture, the people that are the culture, the small businesses, the venues, the music, the scene, it all gets pushed out because cost of living increases and so on. And you can read all about it. I've talked about this in a previous episode. You can read about it, you can learn about it, and you will see that gentrifying an area is not always an instant win. It's certainly not an instant win for everybody. Unfortunately, we seem to rely on, or hang the hat on, as I like to say, a small number of events and gatherings to allegedly draw together and drive the so-called startup scene here in Greater Vegas by people who are not necessarily aware of what that really needs to be. Why go to these various events to hang out and socialize, to get hit on by those looking for clients, to participate in transactional engagements, when there is work to do? So as I like to tell people, the people that are the small companies, the startups, the people that are really making things happen probably don't have time to come and hang out and have lunch and, get hit on. Worse, we really have no idea what is really going on in our entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem through any sort of local press, local media, social media. If you yourself do not tell someone else, if you don't post on Instagram or make enough LinkedIn posts to feed the algorithms, or maybe you'll hear about from someone else what they're doing, something interesting. It is entirely possible that you'll have no idea that there is or is not a startup scene of some kind in an area you might be, maybe you might find interesting yourself. I don't mean a geographical area. I mean a topic area. So you just have to hope that you come across people. If you are interested in finding other people, it's a bit of a challenge here. So why is this important, though? I have mentioned the Formula One debacles, plural, as examples of letting our local government, in this case the Clark County Commission, drive large projects with asymmetric benefit. That is, some resorts and other large players do well, smaller businesses do poorly due to lack of consideration of impact on the smaller businesses with things like construction and traffic diversions. Then the public face appears happy, announcing great success. The failings imposed on local businesses, small businesses, these don't get quite the attention. Lawsuits follow, but those kind of fall below the radar. If there is interest at the government level, including the state GOED, that's the Governor's Office of Economic Development, Clark County, and individual cities to see development of a high-tech focused startup scene, one would imagine that there would be a lot of actual news around this rather than mostly hype. And yes, there are small wins here and there. We would hope for as much in any locality where humans are feeling entrepreneurial, right? There is going to be some good news now and then. There will also be some bad news now and then. I don't know if we even ever hear about that. Does this make for an innovation hub, the plans of said hub for Southern Nevada, realistic? How exactly? There are blips, mostly via LinkedIn, certainly not appearing in the papers of record, online though they may be, the Las Vegas Sun and Review Journal, leaving it to this startup scene to recognize, celebrate, and then analyze these small wins. What is working, what is not, and where is the ecosystem evolving? But that's not really what the startup scene is doing. They're more concerned with having classroom settings to talk about or pitch ideas and business opportunities and so on. And it's not just me saying this. I've talked to several people at this point who would like to see more. I'll just leave it there. A lack of interest, perhaps. The LVGEA, that's the Las Vegas Global Economic Alliance, writes on its website that there is some assistance for companies wishing to move to the Greater Vegas area if they're a certain size and value, if they'd like to pursue like the professional sports industry that's evolving here. and so on. So these are big money, high profile. As long as you're worth something like 10 million, I think it was, come on down. Oh, you're a startup that wants to work in the professional sports area? Well, good luck. Get away from me, kid. You bother me. In other words, not a startup. They're not really truly interested in startups. Now they can say they're interested in startups, but let's see where's the action. Most of the press that does get printed regards money and the potential for money from investors, not the startups. Formula One is treated as an attractor for companies focused on professional sports. These are not startups either. We really want startups, but we just do not recognize them. This should change. As I have mentioned, restaurants and bars get the most attention from most measures. By most measures, I should say. Let me fix that. Get the most attention by most measures. So that is to say, let me finish what I wrote here. With focused media, that's like Eater online resource. That's not a Las Vegas publication, but it is a vertical publication that does have a Las Vegas section. It's quite active. It focuses on the Las Vegas area specifically, not to mention content creators that run around the greater Vegas area with their cameras, smartphones. Some have actual cameras to create content around the latest this, the newest that, the grand opening, the special features, mostly appealing to tourism, tourists visiting, where's the best place to get a deal, how to spend a weekend in Vegas, etc. There's a whole smattering of things that are covered by our local content creators, thanks to some support from the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority. That's nice. Occasional media mention in the main press outlets, especially if it's got a celebrity attached to it or a lot of money. If it talks about investment, that's one thing. If you're talking about the actual startup scene, good luck. This could easily take place across the entire entrepreneurial innovation ecosystems, but it doesn't happen without direction from on high. That is to say, some sort of press coverage or authoritative sort of updates now and then. You're left with LinkedIn, essentially. The problem appears to be rooted in the culture of innovation or lack of it at all levels. There is simply no reflexive tendency to be excited by innovation, startups, entrepreneurialism, and so on from the top, or to be honest, down here on the ground where locals live and carry on their days here in the greater Vegas area. Casino take for each month, that gets some reporting. How many millions and billions of dollars, I think it's more like $1 billion, of winnings did the casinos take home? That makes the news. Local startup funding rounds closing, not so much. Local residents on the strip. Local residences on the strip, that is music entertainers, etc., and entertainer residents at the Sphere, for example. That will get some news. Local product launches, not so much, unless there is a lot of money involved. For example, a new self-driving car company might get some attention. It seems to be less than interesting to the majority. Is this true, and why? So I've talked about solutions to some of this over the past 103 episodes, now including this one. So I'm going to reiterate a couple of them, but this does fall into the Initiative 2025 scheme, and it's something I just wanted to draw attention to yet again because there is a short attention span here in Vegas. Although I do appreciate you listening to this, and hopefully if you've listened to multiple episodes, you're beginning to sense a theme. So some ideas. These are not necessarily guaranteed to change the world, but they are low-hanging fruit, so to speak, and they are opportunities to at least shine some light on some of the smaller businesses forming or attempting to form in the greater Vegas area. A little typo there. So some of these I've already mentioned, but now, how about a quick list of ideas to start with? The Eureka Park feature at CES, that's the Consumer Electronics Show in January every year, is all about smaller companies and research projects and so on, with sponsorship by countries and educational outlets and so on. There was zero presence at Eureka Park in CES 2025 on the part of anyone in Vegas. I looked. I couldn't find anyone in Vegas who was there with a booth or other presentation at Eureka Park. It's telling because last year there was a small, very small, poorly represented booth for the UNLV Office of Economic Development, but then no actual startups. I keep hearing that there's a startup scene here. I keep hearing about some success stories when it comes to training programs at Zero Labs or one of the startup NV deals. There's all kinds of NV, LV, whatever, and I'll get to that later. But there's no. Let's see some there. This could change for 2026, but someone has to arrange for the space, and hopefully we have some startups or small businesses that are there to make a showing. I've already mentioned the list. That's the local innovator show and tell to coincide with CES to address some of the age restrictions and industry focus issues that would make a separate coincident event a little bit more appealing to locals and young people. This also needs some space, and it would actually probably benefit from having some buy-in from the GoEd or some other agency, not driving it necessarily, but supporting it. Support is really hard to come by here in Vegas if you're not already rich. The notion that there is a single startup scene that centers on a monthly event is ridiculous. This is far too much hand-holding, too much celebration, and not enough action, if you like. The second startup scene is a label for other such scenes. There would be more than just a single second scene. Focus on action and progress, not free lunch. Media, as I've already suggested. This is easy to describe. Look at any special interest publications as examples and execute for the Entrepreneurial Innovation Ecosystem. There are such publications for bars and restaurants, for example. I've mentioned Eater a few times. Now, how about for new retail, mobile vending, tech startups, service startups, and so on? Like, why are we not making a place for all these small businesses that we're trying to attract and pretend to support here? Oh, you're here? Good luck. Mentorship and guidance. There is already focus on training programs offered at Startup NV or one of their many affiliated entities. Zero Labs now at the what is it called? Blackfire Innovation. So Zero Labs is operating there. I think there's a Blackfire Innovation Fund now. Good for them. Maybe elsewhere around the greater Vegas area. But how about actual guidance on actual startups? Training programs are fine, and aspiring entrepreneurs, nascent notions, not those. Actual startups up and running, maybe in an accelerator or incubator setting, though these are often limited to particular vertical focus for the sake of investors. But consider entrepreneurs in residence. Yes, I've talked about this many, many, many times. Mentors who could answer questions and guide towards success our budding unicorns, regardless of industry or level of initial funding. No, not SCORE, an actual good program. I've tried working with SCORE. They're ridiculous. So entrepreneurs in residence, some actual mentors who will be reliable guidance regardless of whether you're pursuing something that investors will be excited by, right? Maybe you're just doing something that will be exciting. Maybe you're not part of Startup NV. Maybe you're not part of Zero Labs. There should be people taking an interest in elevating the entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem here. And that's part of the goal of the Genius Roundtable, by the way, in case I've not said that frequently enough. So this is a partial list. The missing core element, though, is the culture of innovation, which simply takes time and real interest to develop. It cannot be sprinkled on top like Jimmy's. Those are little chocolate sprinkles. It needs to evolve, and it depends entirely on the people who make up the entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem, not a government agency, not a monthly transaction with free food. It takes actual interest and actual action, and it really helps to have people willing to establish a feedback loop so that efforts are visible and self-reinforcing to maintain momentum. Momentum is what gets the culture growing, cultivating the culture, so to speak. There. Simple. Now let's make it happen. There you go. A particularly short episode today. 2 days late, but not $2 short. That didn't work, but that's okay. Thank you for listening to this brief reminder that there are people doing things. We just don't see them. Where is everybody? That can be answered by some. No, the small group of people who show up on a third Saturday each month are not the startup scene. They are checking the checkbox that they are part of a startup scene. The people that are doing the real work are too busy to attend such events. But if what I'm hearing is true, they are interested in similar such gatherings and activities to engage with people who are doing things, who can really collaborate on solving issues, answering questions, and so on. Not showing up for free lunch. That's all I have to say about that. No, that's not true. I'll continue to harp on it. into the future. Anyway, thank you for listening. This is, again, a really short show, but it was a good week, and we're back on schedule for the coming week, and this being the final episode of Season 1. Season 2 will commence on Friday the 28th. Did I get that date correctly? I got that date correct, I should say. Indeed. So 28 February, let's commence episode 105 with Season 2, or vice versa. Thanks for listening, and take it easy. Now go work on your startup. Bye-bye.